Good morning everyone, hope you're doing well. The COT data video for the 2nd of October 2023, and we've got a bit of rumour about a government shutdown as well, so we've got to remember to check some of the fundamentals. If we have a government shutdown, Janet Yellen was saying that we could enter a recession, so we have to be a little bit careful. And it's obviously anything that happens on the macro of huge significance like a government shutdown is going to influence the price of FX, and we probably could potentially see a flight to safety, and so it could see a flight to safety in the dollar and the yen potentially, and maybe you could argue gold, but gold's moving because of the US Treasury yields. They're more in favour because they pay a better interest rate, better return and a yield than gold. The US Treasuries are issuing 5% return, which is really good. So that's their preferred safe haven over gold. So gold's not necessarily a good safe haven. More, I'd probably say the US Treasuries would be a better investment in case we do go risk off and we have a big macro outlook where it's going to be quite ugly potentially this week. But we'll have to wait and see. So you can see the euro's fallen. We went from 101 to 98, so it looks like it's trying to buck that decline. It's trying to stop that decline ever so slightly, and potentially what it could be doing, it could be indicating like something like this. You know, we're going to come down, but then we might bottom, and then we'll do this maybe. But we'll have to wait and see for Friday and the COT data. The dollar's doing exactly what I thought it would. It's tracking above the zero line, like I've been saying for a long time. And it looks like it's ticking higher, and we went ever so slightly more positive. It's like 900 contracts added by the big fish. The net non-coms are your banks and institutions, so they're like the big boys basically. So potentially the euro's trying to bottom, you know, perhaps, but it's very hard to say. And if these two lines cross, we're going to get the EU, the Euro USD sell, and it's worth noting that we've got a long way before we reach the 52-week low. If you remember the 52-week low, we were below parity on the Euro USD, and I think we went to 98, 0.98 or something. Have a look at your trading view. Have a look. Just 1 second. Have a look at the Euro USD. The 52-week low was 96, 0.9631, and we're currently at 105. So we've got potentially, 1,000 pips to the downside. All right, so you've got to be really careful. If those two lines cross, it's going to be an EU sell. Okay, let's look at yen. Just so you know, I'm just looking at the trading view and that 52-week range. So we're above the 52-week range. That's like a yearly pivot. So we're on this side of it. So that's fairly promising, it's fairly bullish, but if we go below the 52-week range, it could be a bit ugly. Okay, it's a yearly pivot. So let's look at yen, if it'll let me, come on, yen, and we need this support to hold. I think if we're going to break these supports, then we're going to see some intervention from the Bank of Japan. And unfortunately, the way that things are going, the dollar is strengthening and the yen is weakening, so it looks like we're probably going to climb higher on UJ, and then we're going to get that intervention, and it's going to cause a lot of chaos, especially against a backdrop of a government shutdown. So we could have a very roller coaster week with the yen and the USD potentially, and just keep an eye on these lows. I think they're probably going to break, but we'll have to wait and see. Euro off, Aussie on. Now note how we're fairly erratic, and it looks like it's trying to smooth on the euro. If you look at Aussie, it's just very erratic and very spiky. And we're negative, obviously. We're well below zero, and we're slightly away from its lows from last week. So 96 to 86. There's a 10,000 contract difference from the week prior. So no signal there, there's no crossover. Let's take Aussie off and the pound on. We can also look at other currencies as well, but we'll just look at these ones. GU, so what will happen this time next week is that we're probably going to get the confirmation of a sell on the COT data of the pound against USD. going by the crossover. We are currently crossing over, but you probably want to wait just for a little bit of confirmation. And here's the BOE 50 basis point hike, which, you know, it sent price much higher. And if you remember my video from 3 weeks ago, I was saying how we're making a down channel. We made that lower high and the lower low, and so therefore we created a channel. And I put a question mark on there with an arrow indicating that we're probably going to break that channel, and we did, and we've fallen quite heavily. And so that was quite a good little tip there. You can probably try and draw some channels on it and stuff. And don't forget, this document is yours to use at your disposal, but you have to be a Patreon subscriber, and it has to be basic tier and above, or the daily bulletin tier. Sorry, if you subscribe to the daily bulletin, you get the COT data, and that's quite affordable. It's quite cheap. So there's the GU. So we're going to look at a sell potentially this time next week, not tomorrow, but the following Monday, because you want to see confirmation of that crossover. And you get a lot of stuff on Patreon. You get this, you know, this data, and you get Discord. You get access to the robot. You get access to the spreadsheet. You get quite a lot of stuff. Canadian dollar. So we went from 48 to 32. We did reject quite hard at the 0, so we might see a repeat of the rejection. It looked like we were going positive. It looked like we were going to get the dollar CAD set up, but they were like, nope, we're selling the CAD. And the dollar CAD, it ramped higher. So yeah, so that's that. Canadian dollar off. We'll look at gold quickly, and just sideways choppy. If we break this, it's probably going to be a decent sell. So 98,400. Yeah, 115,000. So we've got a long way to breaking that support. We're just a bit consolidating sideways. And of course, we had a very heavy conclusion to the week on gold, and this data is from Tuesday. We have to remember, so if this data was from Friday, you'd know we probably would have broken that support, and so we just have to wait for the next COT data. But I think what would have happened, because we were such a heavy end to the week, we did actually break that low, and then the next target is going to be that low, then that low, and then we're going to probably be quite heavy on gold because the US Treasury yields are pumping, and they're a preferred safe haven over gold because they're paying a better yield. If you look at your government bond yields, you're going to get a much nicer return on your investment than if you were to invest in gold. Well, you know, you're not getting paid that much, but in the government bonds in the United States, they're paying like 5%, which is really, really good. It's like a quite attractive investment. So that's why gold's probably falling, because people are, well, the smart money are rushing into government bonds as opposed to gold, where it's a little bit risky. And you could probably argue it's been manipulated a little bit anyway, but the government bonds are probably a preferred safe haven. So don't look for gold for a typical safe haven, because it's being rejected by the non-coms, and you can see, you know, we're declining, and we're probably going to break that low by next week. When we report this video next week, I think we would have broken that low. Gold off, and then we'll look at Kiwi, and it was moving a little bit, and it's kind of typical. It looked like we were falling quite heavily, and it just rejected or rebounded off that low, but we're still tracking sideways. We can see we're very consolidating sideways. We're just ranging really badly, so be careful with the New Zealand dollar. And lastly, the Swiss franc, which I think is probably going to be quite similar. Swiss franc, there we go, and we're just going sideways. So that's it. So I'll just wrap up now. Keep an eye on GU, the pound USD, and keep an eye on the yen, because we're probably going to possibly break these lows, and if we do, it's going to be quite heavy. And be careful, because we've got the government shutdown, which is a potential scenario. And don't forget, we had a government shutdown when Obama was around, and it didn't really cause too much chaos in the markets. It did cause the VIX to spike quite a bit, but it was being hammered down, and it's probably a similar situation is going to happen. If we get a government shutdown, there's going to be lots of fear and panic, and we'll have to just check your sentiment to see what the crowd are doing. If they're going to be really scared and bearish, then you know what's going to happen. Price is going to go up higher, aren't they? So keep an eye on the spreadsheet, and have a lovely Sunday, and I'll speak to you guys soon.